Hey, everybody, it's Holley, and welcome back to the Sane-ish podcast. Welcome to Sane-ish, the podcast for people healing from trauma, addiction, abuse, mental health struggles, grief, narcissists, and every other flavor of chaos life can throw at you, and somehow still functioning mostly. I'm your host, Holly, a survivor, truth teller, boundary setter, and proud member of the Still Healing, Still Hilarious Club. Around here, we don't do shame, embarrassment. We don't do perfection. Just real talk, dark humor, hard truths, and a lot of hope. Because sanity is overrated. And healing, that shit is messy. So this is Sane-ish, and let's get into it. Okay, so my guest today is a very talented, very far away friend of mine who I was a guest on her podcast. She is in Canada, and she's very intuitive, which I didn't know until after the podcast. But she is a friend of mine. Her name is Jasmine Bootle. And I'm so grateful that she's on the podcast because she is going to be totally genuine with us. But I would like to welcome her and just get into it. And Jasmine, hey,
Hi.
hi.
All right.
Thank
So,
you so much for being on Sane-ish
no
and
problem. It's
and
nice
returning
seeing
the
you again.
favor.
It's definitely nice seeing you again, too. It's been a little while. So, I have obviously a bit of an update from where it really didn't change much since the last time we talked about it. But yeah, but we'll get to that part. So, I'll start at the beginning. So, I grew up in a really small town. And my mother was she expected me to be perfect. So if we went to people's houses, she would always pay attention to everything I said and did, and then tell me what I did wrong and yell at me on the way home in the car. So as I became school aged, I was afraid to talk to people. I was afraid of people in general because I didn't want to get in trouble because it just had this anxiety about me with it, right? And I'm an only child as well. So unless I really knew somebody, it was harder for me to know how to socialize with people my own age because I was always around adults, right?
Mhm.
Unless it was their friends, children, and stuff like that. I always did like to be the oldest because I'm a control freak, even to this day. So I liked being older because then I could have some control in the situations and stuff. If I was the younger one, I was a lot quieter. But in school, I was bullied pretty much from start to finish. Basically, it started because my mom didn't want me to get lice, so she put straight tea tree extract in my hair. And people back then didn't really even know what that was, so the smell was bad. So everybody thought I was a smelly kid. And they also thought I was weird because my friend and I did have one friend, and him and I would always read books about witchcraft that we could find and stuff. So everybody thought we were weird and that I was stinky, and we were both really tiny. So easy targets, quiet. So, but in like elementary school, it was just regular type bullying, I guess you could say. But I feel like the moment I truly realized that the world was not fair was probably around grade 6 when I wanted to win this volunteer award. So I had volunteered for absolutely everything. I should have won the award because I had more volunteer hours and more volunteer things I'd done. But this one girl who was like considered the goody two shoes, all the teachers loved her, she won the award instead for doing half the work. So that's what I realized after all the bullying. I tried really hard at something and I still failed again. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
realized that the world was just not fair. which obviously then starts to create that mindset of not caring as much, right? So leading into addiction aspects, it makes you not as worried about trying things because you don't really care about anything because you feel like the world doesn't care about you, right? But
Mhm.
then I got to high school and it got really, really bad. Like they would throw garbage at me. They would surround me in a big circle and push me around and stuff. They would
Oh,
write things all over lockers about me being a slut. I was a virgin, so I don't know why, but they'd always call me a slut. They'd throw water balloons in my face. They'd sing songs about me like use a hoe, hoe, or the Eminem song Puke, and they'd be like, "You make me fucking sick to my stomach. Every time I think of you, I just puke." Like, so they were excessively, and they call my house too and pretend they were my friend to get through my mom, and then they come on the phone and start yelling stuff at me. And if they ever see me walking around town, they would scream stuff at me. Pretty much this day, they still feel this way about me. I don't know what I did, but they don't like me. And so the bullying was so extreme, I was missing school. But my mother, like I said, wanted perfectionism. So I decided to forge a report card so my mother didn't realize my grades had slipped they would yell slut into my classroom in front of all the other kids. So nobody wanted to be my friend because if they were friends with me, they were going to get made fun of. So I had one friend who they also had decided to pick on. So we banded together because they hated both of us, anyways, right? And along the way, we started picking up other friends that kind of had been thrown under the bus by them too, right? But
so so Jasmine, let me stop you. Did you? How did all that make you feel? Like, were you like were you like anxious or like depressed
so
or?
there's two things. I was terrified to be alone in a bathroom because there was no cameras and I was afraid they were going to bash my teeth out of my face or do something to hurt me that was too much, right?
Mhm.
But another thought that I had that was why I probably never went into a deep depression was they're putting this much effort into doing these things to me where I don't even think about them unless it's in like an anxious way, like I've got to go hide in the bathroom or in the library so that they can't find me or something. Like
Mhm.
I'm not thinking about like them per se, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, well, they obviously have to care to some degree. Like I must be something special to them to hate me so much, right? So
Mhm.
I kind of flipped the script on that. I had depression and stuff, but that was more from my home life. Like my
Oh.
life with my mother, my dad worked a lot. I she was just a very difficult person to deal with. She grew up um never meeting her mother, then finding out when I was about 14 that my grandfather said that her mother killed herself in a psychiatric prison. Well, that wasn't true, and she had these other siblings that were coming and claiming that my grandfather was actually their father, and he wouldn't admit it, but they did look a lot like him. So I don't know. And so this was a big reason why as much as I had the depression and the anxiety my mother caused me, I
Mhm.
could understand that she was going through a lot herself. And at this
Mhm.
time, she was starting to progressively drink more. And I get it. It's something that, like, your whole life you think one way, and now there's another thing. And our family kind of treated her differently after, even though it wasn't her fault that these people came into our lives. Plus, the people themselves were a little bit they had problems because they'd been through foster care. So, like if that's just a whole can of worms that if it would take me 3 hours to talk about how crazy that shit is. Okay, but we don't
Sure.
talk to them anymore because the one was a big liar. Like one time she said she made us a loaf of bread, but it literally had the bakery's name on the cellophane. Like she was crazy. We were she Yeah. She said that she was a cop, but we didn't but then and found this bag of, popcorn salt, and she sniffed the popcorn salt just to prove that it was cocaine, and she knew because she was a cop. But what cop would do that? Like, so this is what I mean by there's a lot of really weird situations with her. Plus, my best friend at the time, her we were in grade 8, and her dad had passed away from cancer. And this was the first weekend after, and she was sleeping in my house. And my mom, like my new aunt, drank 40 Southern Comfort in like a half an hour and was passed out by the toilet unresponsive. My friend whose dad just died goes to use the toilet, and the woman's passed out on the ground, and my friend has to go get my mom, mortified that this happened. My friend later also became an alcoholic. So I don't know if there's a connection to that one, but I yeah. But that's where I'm saying there's so many fucked up stories from this woman. She was just so determined for my grandfather to say that that was her father, but she just had mental health problems. That's all we'll say. She had
Okay.
mental health problems, but we didn't know that when you first meet somebody. So in getting to know her, there's a lot of crazy things that happen. That's for sure, right? Like
A
the
little
pop.
bit, just a little bit, just a little
Like,
bit.
could you imagine snorting popcorn snow or salt? Like, oh my God. I mean, I've snorted a lot of things in my time, but never popcorn salt. But yeah, so with high school, that happened while I was in high school. So that's another thing. Like the bullying, it was more fear of being alone with them than anything, realistically, right?
Yeah.
And um other than that, like I had my own depressions, like the things with my mother going through all of this, and with these people doing all of this, and my family feeling this way. So we had our own turmoil. So it was like, yes, this is a lot from them, but I also one time we seen them come in, they called us sluts. I always carried a knife around in my purse in case they tried to jump me, even though they did try to jump me, but they told me that they were gonna break my ribs because they were holding me up by my arms and legs, and they were gonna break my ribs if I tried anything. So I had to just take it that time, right? But I carried a knife around with me, and one of the girls came in, and I knew her car. So I said to my friend who was wearing these stupid little heels, I'm like, let's run outside and pop her tires of her truck, right? So we go outside and pretend like we're smoking, and we're popping the tires of her truck, and my friend's in this little outfit like and yeah, and like we figured it like that she would just think that she drove over a nail or something, right? And one of my boyfriends later on, I tell him this story, and he's like, I was actually in the back of her truck when that happened, and she literally did think that happened, so she had no idea that I did it. So
Wow.
yeah, she was the stronger one. I'm glad, because she would have probably kicked my ass. Like, being held down's a little different because I was winning the fight. They had to hold me down, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a bunch of just girl drama. But the one thing was we weren't sluts. So the guys liked us because we would hang out and smoke pot and drink beer instead of acting sloppy. You know what I mean? And being like,
Hmm.
like, girls can act, just
And by now, this was in high school, right?
yeah,
Or,
this is in
or
high school. So
uh,
yeah, so this is when the girls are really, really like
yeah,
vamping up but they just basically the thing was they didn't want me and my friend to get attention from the boys. That's basically what it was. But
yeah,
we decided to flip the script and get the attention from the boys, which just pissed them off more, because eventually we got to the point, because we never slept with any of them, that we had control to say, oh, we don't want them to come to the party, and the guys would actually not let them come, because they were called the ghetto sluts because they would make out with each other and then like do things with boys and like act sloppy is my word for it, you know what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And me and my friend always thought, this would be our way to get our ticket into popularity. You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
would do drugs with them, but we wouldn't sleep with them. So that's how I got into drugs and stuff like that, right? Because they would all do them. And like I did cocaine for the first time at 17, ecstasy at 16. Oh, I started drinking at like 10 or 11. Smoking, same thing. I smoked pot first time at like 13. So I did drugs relatively young, but then this is where the addiction part comes in. So I graduated high school. And afterwards, my mom said she's going to leave my dad. And she soaked him dry. And for the longest time, we didn't even have a car. So my dad was also very, like, I mean, I would literally walk around my college at the time and pick up change so that I could get a bag of cheesies. That's how poor we truly were. And so I stayed with my dad to try to help him get back on his feet.
Hmm.
And we maybe weren't the smartest sometimes with the money. Like we would both say, okay, this is how much we each have this month. We would allocate everything to the bills. And what was left over, instead of saving it for something, we would get alcohol, right? So
Hmm.
both of us were just going like coming from a pretty upper middle class to being really poor was relatively a bit of a culture shock, right? Especially not being taught life skills about how to pay bills and things like that. So only being 18, it was a little bit much because she was also off living the high life, going on vacations and buying whatever she wanted and like throwing it in our faces too, right? So that was it just was a lot of shit. So we're like, fuck it, we're gonna get drunk, right? So eventually though, my dad, because he is a workaholic, managed to get a car. And then I managed to get drunk, and it was a Chrysler Fifth Ave, so a huge front end made out of metal, luckily. And I managed to hit an 18-wheeler flatbed turning left, going 90 kilometers an hour. So I was lucky to be able to get up and walk away from that. Nobody else, I was supposed to get my friend, and I was late. If she would have been in the car, she would have been dead because it was the passenger side that took the most impact, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
because it was an older car, there was so much more impact to be able to handle it, right? But
Yeah.
I didn't get hurt from that. And I didn't learn my lesson either because my daddy paid for my lawyer. And my daddy would get me a 2-4 after I went to court. And my daddy paid my fine when I got charged. So didn't learn anything there. And he would let
How old,
me
how old were you when that happened?
19.
Okay.
And so then I had this boyfriend. He was 4 years older than me. So I was of a drinking age too, but he didn't really like drinking actually, to be honest, but he had a lot of friends. And so he would always have them over at the house. And my dad liked it because of the depression. It made it more like he was reliving his younger years, right? Like frat
Hmm.
house kind of feeling, right? So he'd always let us party. My ex himself didn't like drinking, but we would always just have so many people over that it just wouldn't matter, right? But eventually my dad got congestive heart failure and had to stop drinking. So he started to not like what I drank. And that's um when I broke up with that boyfriend, and I would start to just go out then because my dad didn't like it, right? But
Hmm.
then I met somebody. So then I'm in college now. So I'm about 22. I meet a guy who was from the military, but he had done a few tours in Afghanistan and had some extremely bad PTSD. He forced me to quit drinking and forced me to go to AA. So for 3 years I was completely sober. Um, he even tried to get me to quit smoking, but it's the funny part. I would hide my smokes in the bottom of a Pepperidge Goldfish Farm cracker box, and I'd smoke, and then I'd eat the crackers, and then I'd walk downtown and I'd come back, and by then and like put perfume on at first, and I knew it would get rid of it and stuff like that and hide under this bridge. Or I'd go a couple days and I'd be so excited to go to work because I could smoke. But So he had his own like PTSD problems. He never hit me physically, but he threatened to chop me into little pieces. He would get like this and scream in my face. He would try to shove alcohol in my mouth. Every time I slept with him, it felt like rape, to be honest, because of the way he was with me. So it was a really toxic relationship, but that was a point when I was sober. But the stupid part was I met a guy in AA and started sleeping around with him, and I left my boyfriend and started seeing the guy from AA for a little while. But then once he rejected me, I went right back to drinking because you can't like I'm about 25, no, sorry, 27 at this time, right? So
Yeah.
I was a sunshine girl, which is something in Canada where you're in the newspaper and they do like a photo shoot for you and stuff. And they
Mhm.
ran my photos a lot of times. So I had guys that wanted to go on dates with me, right? And I didn't want to sit there and explain, oh, I can't have a drink because I'm an alcoholic. I was too young to truly embrace that. I knew it, but I didn't want to embrace it. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that led me down some paths. I used to do cocaine. At that point, I started doing cocaine when I was drinking to sober
Mhm.
me up a little bit when I was with guys.
To
But
lift
like,
to lift you up from the depression that you when
no, when you're really drunk, if you
yeah.
do a little bit of cocaine, it sobers you up a bit, right?
Oh, okay. I've
Yeah,
never done it, so
so
I'm
that's
not
why I would do it. But there was
okay.
one point, this is where my depression really hits and gets where my ex used to tell me that guys only wanted me for sex, right? So, um, was a lot, I just started to become really promiscuous. This time though, these guys gave me a lot of cocaine. I couldn't go home to my dad. I just didn't want him to see me like that. And they told me the only way to stay is if they let me, or if I stripped and I let them film. And I did it. And because I was so messed up, right? I just did it. The next day when I woke up sober, they were also sleeping. I snuck out of the house, took a cab home, and I just felt so violated, you know? So I
Mhm.
told one of my friends about it, and he went in front of them, and they were like, oh, Jasmine's just like that, right? So there was just that thought of this is just what men think of me, anyways, right? So
Mhm.
then I'm still 27, so this is all kind of packed into a year here. I went on Seeking Arrangement, which is a website where you can meet men for money
Mhm.
and go on dates with them. Plus, they expect more than that, as much as it says it's just a dating site. But
Mhm.
so I started seeing doing that, right? And it got I got a pretty women like it could be scary at times. Like I had a pretty woman moment where sort of where the guy he told me the wrong name. So I go to the receptionist. He lived at the Four Seasons in a condo. I go and I ask for him. The lady looks at me. Oh, nobody lives here by that name. I go outside. He's right there. So he takes me in, and we're in the elevator, and I'm wearing like no name clothes brand, and the lady's in Prada and everything, right? And I'm like, I feel like Pretty Woman right now. I'm sitting here carrying this, and she looks like that. And I'm like, she knows exactly what this is because I'm 20 years younger than him. I'm not dressed like she's dressed. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
he took me to the pool, and it was even more prevalent that I was an escort. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that was a really awkward one because I smoke and he's like because they're paying for you, they don't care. That's why they don't have girlfriends because they'll just say whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you
Yeah.
made my sheet smell like cigarettes. You need to quit smoking if you want to stay with me. He didn't pay me that much, so I was like, fuck that, right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like one guy paid me $900 just to jerk off to my boobs. So I was like, no, right? So I went through some experiences with that, but then when I turned about 28, my daughter's father moved back from out west, and he was somebody I had a crush on in high school. And I started seeing him, which kind of took me away from that negative lifestyle. This is another funny one, actually, for people who go to college, which I do actually. There was a professor who picked me up from the college I went to, gave me a bottle of wine to drink in the car while he was drinking whiskey in the car. And we go to a hotel room, and then he goes and teaches a class. So,
Oh, wow.
teacher, yeah. So when we put teachers on a pedestal, you're not really seeing. It's like the mask that people wear because I don't think he's the only one who does shit like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
so
why, that's why I always tell people to never compare yourself to others because you don't know what other people are going through. You really don't. You have no, people may have a lot of money,
but
but you
they're
still
not nice.
they may not be nice. They may be going through a hideous divorce. They may be on, you know, their car may be repossessed tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, you just there could be thousands of things that
Like the
they are
fact that
going.
you pay this much money to go to college and this teacher is drunk and just paid for a escort. Like,
Yeah, you have no
is
idea.
your money good, well spent money? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's just so
And
many
it's
reasons.
murky.
Yeah, there's just so many reasons why you shouldn't compare yourself to others.
And
There really is.
especially, and I also would say, do not put yourself in the position that I did where I didn't really know these people and I could have got really, really hurt. So
Sure.
do not do what I did. Honestly, don't. It's not worth it. They don't treat you very well. The money might sound good, but it's not worth it. It really isn't. And I mean, for a while I felt shame for it, but realistically, that's just a part of who I was. But then I met like my daughter's father, who I mean, he was a drinker then and he did a bit of cocaine, but so did I, right? So I wasn't really overly like thought anything negative of him. He at the time had his own place and everything. So he was actually motivating me to pay off my debts and stuff. So he was a totally different person than he is now. But I got pregnant really quickly, right? Like really quickly, probably 2 weeks in. And we had our daughter and he was with me through the passing of my father, which my dad was in the ICU for 3 months because he got septic shock from his job, and they couldn't figure out where the septic shock came from till his boss came and visited him and said what they like how they do the air conditioning, and then that's how they figured out he had septic shock, and they ended up being able to get him out of the coma, but everybody told me to pull the plug, and I refused to. And I slept there every night for 3 months straight. And the things I seen in that ICU, you don't want to see because you just see families losing people, families in fight or flight. You see other patients running around the hospital that are in dementia, like having issues. You just see or you see them taking the people who've passed out of the ICU. Like it is a lot for any human. I don't know how nurses and first responders and doctors and even police officers have the strength to do what they do because I had a really hard time seeing all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I promised God that if he brought my dad back, I would stop drinking. So there's where I stopped drinking for a while. My dad eventually passed away about 6 months later, but we still got to have some time with him. I was really, really, really close with my dad. His urn is right behind the computer. Like he was my best friend. He was like the only like I won't even get married because I want to belong to my dad. I don't want to belong to anybody else, you know? And so like
Mhm.
my dad is everything to me. So he goes everywhere with me. We do every like even in spirit, you know. So I'm very,
Sure.
very close with him. So when he did pass, I was upset because he waited until I left because I would never leave. I was obsessive, right? Because I didn't want him to go without me, right? But he did. And that was pretty traumatizing walking in the room and just seeing his body like that. And I wanted his hospital bracelet. So my daughter's father was going to cut it off and give it to me. And my aunt started screaming, saying he was desecrating my dad's body and stuff like that. And so that was relatively traumatic. And then my aunt uh um had my dad had cancer that was viral in his brain and wasn't aware of the decisions he was making. So when he did his will, he was. But when he got his pension paperwork, which was $122,000, he died a week later. So he was not all there. He was incontinent, if you know what that means. And
Mhm.
we had diapers for him and everything. So he wasn't functional. And my aunt had him sign away all that money to nobody when he even told his lawyer that he wanted to give it to me. So we had some family drama, clearly, right? And
Mhm.
then my aunt did not let me speak at my dad's funeral, and I am his only child. She had my cousin do it, and all the while, my daughter's father, because he also got close to my dad, developed a habit and was smoking crack throughout the whole funeral and wanting me to leave and take my aunt's pictures down and stuff so he could go get more drugs. And at this point, I was drinking a little bit, but trying not to, right? Like only once in a while. But then, after my family completely excommunicated me, I started to get a little bit too much. Like I'll admit it, I got a little bit too much because I would do the cocaine and I would drink and I wouldn't sleep and I wouldn't eat. And I had this daughter look after her, but I would always have people take her if I was doing that. I would not usually have her around for it. But my daughter's father started injecting fentanyl. So
Mm.
he had track marks when we would take her to gymnastics and stuff. So his
Now, let
mother,
me let me stop you. Now, did all of your did this addiction stuff kick up because of the pain of losing your father? Okay,
yeah,
that's what I thought. Okay,
it all started for both of us because he had recovered from an opiate addiction like 10 years ago, but somebody gave him Percocet when his foot hurt, and he was like, it's like when I took a Percocet and I had period cramps, but I was depressed. It just took that away and,
sure.
made life euphoric and you weren't more able to function. You weren't depressed anymore or stressed out because his
Yep.
mom eventually called the CAS because she thought our daughter was going to end up in a pine box because one day he passed out from being up for days and left her in the crib when she was napping and I was at work and I called him and I called him and he wouldn't answer the phone. So I called my mom and my stepdad went over there and my daughter was in the playpen crying. So, his mother decided to call on him, right? But because she lived with me, I had to deal with them too, which
Mhm.
is Children's Aid in Canada.
Okay.
Um, so basically, I lived in an older house. That was their problem with me was that they didn't like that I drank, so I fully stopped then. That's the last time I ever drank. And I can't even remember the date because so much shit was going on. And that sucks because a lot of people like to celebrate their birthdays for that, but I don't remember. I know it was 7 years ago. That's about it. And and it was winter time. So, anyways, she called them, but it helped. His mom did it almost to separate us because we were very toxic too because of the way he would act and say, "Oh, I'm a drunk, but yet I worked," because he wanted me to give him money. If I didn't give him money, he would cause a huge scene and go and run around town and tell everybody I'm drunk watching our kid when I'm not, right? So he just liked to cause
Yeah, so then
problems.
it would perpetuate. It would
Yeah,
perpetuate the whole.
all
Yeah,
the
got
time.
it. Yep.
So, and he would steal money from me, and his drug dealer would even call me and ask me because I was friends with him from when we were younger if I actually gave him money or not. So, kind of cut his supply off sometimes, right? But um, once his mom called, we split up, and I met the person I'm with now. Um, and that person, and I went, we sold that house that I lived in and bought a new house in a different city so that we could kind of be away from my ex and his drama. But then he ended up moving to the same city himself because he can just go wherever he wants. He was living in my basement for 2 weeks in the winter without me knowing because I had a separate entrance to the basement. And he would just listen for us in the little side part. So that's something I found out from one of his friends. He's a treat, right? So yeah, but I get along really well with his mother. So that's basically the best thing for my daughter. She goes to church every Sunday with her grandmother. She's still involved with that side of the family, just not him because he's too far gone now, right? And
Yeah.
we don't know if he's in prison or, I mean, you never know where he is, right? So you can't contact him basically. But
Yeah.
anyways, we bought a house. But we both had opiate addictions. So basically, for 2 years we did Percocets and like Oxy 80s, but it was my birthday one year and we couldn't find anything. So we bought fentanyl and we did fentanyl for about a month. And then I went down to 70 pounds because it was cut with meth, which I later found out when I went to get sober. So I could have died from malnutrition.
Jasmine, how bad is the fentanyl as bad as it is here or was? It's not
Oh
that
yeah.
bad. Okay. I just want to
Now
make
they're
because
cutting
it
it.
was.
Now they're cutting it with some sort of elephant tranquilizer, and that's really causing overdoses because
Ooh,
everybody who does fentanyl already has a tolerance to opiates, so it's not gonna kill them. If you were to do it, or I were to do it, we would die because we don't have a tolerance to opiates. But the people that normally do
yeah,
it have a huge tolerance, and that's why they've jumped up because it's the strongest thing you
yeah,
can get, right? But basically, all it does is make you tired and not off. It's not, it's almost, I compare it to being drunk. I didn't like it really because it really did remind me of being drunk. I would black out. I would have bruises all over me. I'd have burn holes and stuff. So, like, I didn't really like it, but at the same time, it's really addictive, right? So I was doing it
sure.
alongside benzos so that I don't know why, but I was doing it with lorazepams as well. So I was snorting lorazepam and I was snorting fentanyl like all day long. It was pretty bad. And then my spouse, I found him in the um wash by the washing machine and he was on the ground. I thought he hit his head off the washing machine because I woke him up. So that was his first heart attack. And then we got in the car and I thought he just nodded off from drugs. So he nodded off, but he actually had a heart attack and rear-ended somebody. And that was the second heart attack. And then the third one, um, it was just me and him laying in bed, and he didn't wake up. And his sister was across the street talking with a neighbor, and she called 911. And the police this time told me that they were going to stay because they really didn't think he was going to make it and it was going to be a crime scene. But he
Ooh,
luckily did make it and because of that, plus the fact that I had lost so much weight, I went to a methadone clinic. And when I took a piss test, I never thought I did meth in my life. I never thought I did heroin in my life. I never thought I did a few other, I think there's PCP in there. Like, I thought I did fentanyl. I thought I did cocaine. I thought I did ecstasy. And I thought that I drank. I didn't think I did any of those other things. But yeah, I did. Didn't know about it, right? But that's what I made me lose so much weight. But I was put on Suboxone, which is a drug that is a beta blocker. So
mhm.
if I was to take an opiate, it would not make me high. So there's no point to taking it and wasting the money because it won't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I stay on it, just for maintenance, in case if I ever feel really stressed out, I can't take it and get affected by it. So it's just maintenance. And that's been 5 years. And within the last like 5 years of sobriety, things have been, they were okay for a little while. And then last summer, my spouse started to gamble, and we went 6 months without hot water, and he would lie all the time. Oh, wait, I'm going back too far. Sorry. So I was in a car accident first, and
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to do a U-turn in the rain, but my license was expired, but I didn't know because I had went to switch addresses and they hadn't sent it to me yet. So, anyways, the police, because I pick my skin, I have aphasia. Um, the police thought that I was a drug addict because I had picked skin everywhere, and they told me that I killed somebody and that I was high on drugs, and they were screaming at me and all this stuff. I didn't even hit anybody. I did a U-turn in the rain and pulled in a parking lot. That's legitimately all I did. And I've been sued for this the car because I had no insurance because of the license issue. So I pay that fine. Plus I have a fine for driving with a with this expired license. But at first they were trying to charge me with 2 years in prison because I apparently killed somebody. And so it was really terrifying. So that's when I started a holistic healing business, reading tarot cards and doing palm readings and different types of divination and stuff like that, because I
Mm-hmm.
knew that I couldn't lay in bed every day and think about going to jail and leaving my family behind. So started
Mm-hmm.
the business. I stopped the business because I could feel that I was bringing negative energy through because of a certain reading that I do, that has to do
Mm-hmm.
with people who are past. I could feel it, and negative things really started to happen to me really quickly, kind of like the situation I'm in right now, which we'll get to. So I stepped back from that business and I went back to school. Also, I went back to school so that I could financially support my family and ever be in the situation I'm in right now, which is like we went back to the gambling and the no hot water and the lies. There was also, we did a mortgage through a private lender, and there was conditions that, like the fine print conditions, and we ended up breaching the contract due to those conditions, right? And they literally, um basically, because we did that, they just went May the 13th, showed up in the morning at my house that I had 15 minutes to leave, and made me leave my house. So now I'm staying at my in-laws. But another thing they did was they never let us go in the house to get any of our stuff. So I have none of my stuff except for what I could grab. They took it all out of the house and put it in a storage bin and then charged us for it instead of leaving it in the house like they were told to, because we're remortgaging the house and everything's going through, and they were just supposed to leave it because eventually we will be able to, once this remortgage goes through, go home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they no, they took everything. I found things of my children smashed in the driveway. Like, I'm suing them. I probably shouldn't say that on TV. Yeah. So I was also
Let
tricked
me,
by a lawyer.
well, let me back up, Jasmine. Didn't you say too that you were also involved in Celebrate Recovery?
Yeah, so I go to Celebrate Recovery now. Since all of this has happened, I have
Yeah.
started going to meetings, as well as going to see my addictions counselor, because I just need some form of clarity, and I am a religious person, so I like Celebrate Recovery. I also like that you don't have to just be an addict to go there. You can go there if you're just working on yourself, or if you're in a situation that you're struggling from. And that's what I really like about it, right? Is that you can kind of be from all walks of life and still come to a meeting and be welcomed, I guess you could say. Like I don't want to
Sure.
drink, but I do want to be able to handle my situation and my anxiety better. So that's why I go to that, right? And I go with a friend I've known since I was 5, that kind of has a similar story as mine. And summertime. He's a single guy. A lot of people have been offering him beers. He just got off Suboxone. He's afraid he's going to slip. So we've been going to CR just for our reasons to keep each other in check, I guess, and also kind of lean on each other in a negative time because there's somebody that we both know so well. My mom lives at his house, for fuck's sakes. So they have a granny suite. So my mom lives in their granny suite and
Oh,
our
okay.
kids are friends and stuff, right? So it's just good to have a friend that like I would say that to anybody that is in sobriety going through a hard time. If you have a friend that is sober, is much easier to deal with because you have somebody to talk to than friends that like to still go out and party because they'll just want you to do that and be like, oh, you just need to go out and you just need to let off steam, when you could have friends or community like CR or the other 12-step programs that create a community so that you don't feel like you have to step out and be with, like, you can be friends with people like that, but in negative times stay within that community. Otherwise it's just, you could slip and you don't want to, because think about how bad your situation is. Now think about what would happen if you relapsed. How much worse was it going to be? And
Yeah.
that's how I've stayed sober, because I don't want to make my situation worse. Every day it feels like it gets worse, anyways. So why would I want to do that to myself? Because I'm the type of drinker, I black out. I mean, I'm going to have to apologize. I'm going to feel that guilt for months and months and months. It's not productive, it's not getting me anywhere. And I also have school that I probably am putting off because I'm hungover. I'm at a family's house who's going to
Yeah.
see me like that. I don't want that. Like, it's just basically a snowball effect. There's no point to it. If, like, I don't know. I feel like once you cross that, like, first couple year line and you're able to understand yourself and understand your triggers and understand when you're overwhelmed and when to take a step back, then it's easier to deal with and navigate life no matter how hard it gets. And in knowing you, sometimes that gives me strength in knowing that others have gone through difficult times and stayed sober too. And that's what I will definitely say about you, is that you are one of those people for me that when I feel like I'm a little shaky, I think about somebody like you and the things that you've had to endure and how you've stayed sober. And so if you can do it, I can do it, kind of thing. And I think that that's what these stories are really good for, is if other people can do it, you can do it no matter what happens to you. So I guess that's kind of my
Yeah.
story.
Yep. And once you get through, it seems like when you're in it, it's impossible. But once you trust and just keep doing, what you're doing, and
And
then you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you just keep doing what you're doing, and then you get through it,
you're
then
also able to think a lot more clearly. So you can plan it, like, as much as you can't control everything, you have more control of yourself. So you can put plans, or at least attempt to put plans into place, instead of going off the rails and not doing anything. You know what I mean?
that's right. And plus, Jasmine, you're also helping others right now, and that's a good thing because you're focusing on others, which keeps you out of your head. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I always, that's where the holistic healing initially started, was because I thought that could be my way to help others. But I realized that my knowledge and my experience with addiction in many, many ways, it is more helpful because I like want to bring more awareness to not one size fits all for like recovery, and that sometimes you want something that suits you and everything else seems scary, but maybe this doesn't. So I like to bring stories of how people got sober, sort of like how you have stories of how people have struggled, to show ways of finding that success. It doesn't have to be lined like they like lined or paved for you. You can pave it yourself. And
Sure.
that's kind of my angle with that. I have a television show and a podcast called Everybody's Addicted.
Mhm.
And I also am in a documentary about the opiate epidemic in my city. And I'm actually in a case study about my car accident too, in a book that's coming out from a doctor in the US in a couple months. So it's like there was a lot of bad that happened, but I'm blessed that I have a roof over my head and my family is allowing us to stay here. And I'm blessed that all these things happened while I was going through the really traumatic times of, and I play back that I have PTSD, so I play back that part of being removed from my house over and over and over, and it creates but then I'll look at my Rogers page and be like, see, I accomplished something. Or I'm also working with a group of parents that have lost children to overdose and trying to help get a mural built in our community for them and for anybody who's lost somebody, just so that we have a peaceful place to go and reflect upon them and have them be in a peaceful place together. And their city is really bad for opiates, and like I said, it's being cut now with this elephant tranquilizer. I can't say the word, or I would. um I would screw it up. But yeah, and it's just, you hear ambulances constantly, and it also is almost like, for the parents, they're like, it's like PTSD for us. We hear an ambulance and it makes us jump, because when our kids were sick, that's all that happened all the time, right? So it's it's just a project I've taken on because the person who overdosed my husband is the same person that killed one of the parents' children. So I feel deeply connected to some of it. I grew up in the area. I know a lot of the people that had to do with all this kind of stuff. I have the platform on the television show to allow them to come on and talk about it. Why wouldn't I do that to help grieving parents who are only just trying to remember their children in the best way they can, and like let people know they were loved and stuff. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I've taken on that a bit recently and helped them. I made them a project proposal because I go to school for marketing and accounting. It's kind of like general business. So they teach us how to do that kind of stuff. So I took it and took what I learned at school and helped them do that because like they don't know where to start. So I was like, well, luckily I'm taking this in school so I can kind of help you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's another way of helping to break the stigma because people, uh, when you bring up drug, alcohol abuse, mental health, people all of a sudden get scared. They
Hmm.
go, ooh, no.
Or
But
they're judgmental.
yeah, they're very, they either don't want to understand it or, um, which is crazy because
Could happen to you one prescription away. Don't, like,
sure.
doctor, like, seriously, that's what I say to them. Whenever they see something nasty, I'm like, you could be one prescription away. You're lucky that you're healthy, but you never know. So don't judge because you don't know why these people are the way they are.
Well,
And
and not
then
only
they usually
that,
shut up.
not, not only that, I'm surprised that because usually people either have a family member or they know somebody that
That's
has,
why I say everybody's addicted, because usually
yep,
everybody knows an addict, has or has been an addict, and if you know an addict, you are addicted to them. And if you're an addict, you're addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling or sex or porn or um like I could go on forever, honestly. So yeah. So you know what it's like to deal with it. So like that's what I said. Everybody usually is affected by addiction, but there's a few that aren't, and they're the ones that usually make the negative comments, and then usually people tend to clap back at them pretty hard because of the way they act, like especially if people post on like local things about issues with like being homeless. Somebody will say something really nasty, and it's like then like 10 of us that have like gone through things will be like, no, 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 you don't know anything, and then they just shut up. So it's
Yep.
just trolling internet bullshit that realistically I try not to get involved with unless it's something that is important to me. Like if they're talking about a friend that's mine that's passed or something, or they're directly talking. I mean, I did an episode with somebody who was transgender, and
Uh-huh.
they were talking about how their mother was murdered. And their episode was like they're one of the first ones I did on my podcast. And when I first started, it kind of ruined me doing local people because everybody was talking about her sexuality opposed to her story, which was about love through her mother's addiction and the painful death that happened to her mother, not about her sexuality. And all she wanted to do was memorialize her mom, right? And
Hmm.
so, um, that's why I went away from doing locals because people can just attack, right? And
Hmm.
usually people clap back, but for some reason everybody was just attacking her so much. I decided to make it an episode on my TV show because you can't comment.
That's fun. That's great. That's great. Um, I was looking up some stuff about fentanyl, and it says doesn't say much about Canada. About surprised, but it says over 70,000 deaths in 2023 were attributed to synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl. Fentanyl is now involved in more than 2 out of every 3 overdose deaths. Now, this is in the US, but what it says about Canada is it says Canada has seen over 40,000 opioid related deaths since 2016, which is a
But
massive. But
I
that's
think the number,
crazy.
I don't think the numbers are right because you got to think about it this way. If my husband passed, they would have said it was because of a heart attack, not an overdose, even though,
Right, but it says fentanyl in Canada. Like the US, fentanyl is found in many street drugs, especially opioids and stimulants. Canada's unregulated drug supply is highly toxic, and many overdose deaths are accidental due to contamination.
yeah,
Carfentanil is an even more potent
yeah.
analog. Analog has also been found in Canadian
Well,
cities.
they have carfentanil, and then they have this new thing called it's like barazoline,
Yeah.
and it's the elephant thing they add in. So it's carfentanil, fentanyl, barazoline, and they just make bathtub death drugs.
Oh
And
God.
they'll even lace them with marijuana joints and everything just to get people to come back to them because it's more addictive, right? But they don't realize that people don't have a tolerance, so it's going to kill them. So,
God.
yeah. And a lot of them, they're all tied in together, so they're all pretty protected. And a lot of them come from Toronto, oddly enough, and come live down here and buy like a big house, almost like Walter White, Jesse Pinkman style, you know what I mean? And like sell drugs like that. It's kind of gotten like that now, and you'll find like big drug busts with they'll be like, oh, it's people from Toronto before know the names of the locals, but lately it's been from people from Toronto coming down buying big houses, making them look like they live like upper class people and selling drugs out of the houses, and like the communities that maybe necessarily wouldn't see the drugs, now they see the drugs too because people will do it that way, right?
Yeah.
But my city, if you were to Google Brantford, Ontario, you would see that it is in Ontario the most opiate per capita overdoses and usage in all of Ontario.
Oh
So yeah,
God.
we're the most opioid city, I guess you could say, in all of Ontario. So that's why they did the documentary on it, because it's not like we're a big city and it's not like we're an overly well-known city, but there's a lot of drugs in our city, a lot. And
Well, listen, I have a lot of respect for you for staying sober, clean and sober there if that's the case. And just so everybody knows, if you are not familiar with Celebrate Recovery is a Christian-based 12-step recovery program, which is designed to help people overcome hurts, hangups, and habits, which can include addiction, trauma, abuse, codependency, anger,
the
grief.
men and the women go in separate rooms, so
Yeah.
you're much more comfortable. I should say that too. It's not like
Eating disorder.
traditional.
Yeah. Eating disorders, sexual addictions, and more. And it differs from traditional 12-step programs like AA and Narcotics Anonymous because it's explicitly centered on Jesus Christ and a
It's
higher power,
also,
biblical principles.
but it also is that you are allowed to talk about whatever you want. In AA, you cannot talk about using other drugs. In
Yeah.
NA, you cannot talk about using alcohol. So this is a program that you can talk about whatever it is that you need to talk about to help yourself. There's no restrictions on what you can say. It is definitely very Christian based, but the men and the women do get to go in separate rooms, which they don't do in traditional 12-step programs either, which I don't understand. But I guess because this CR does cover abuse, that's why they do
Mhm.
it that way. Yeah. So that nobody has to
Yeah.
say anything in
And
front of an opposite sex.
sure. And I just want to make it very clear because AA and NA are spiritual programs. They're not religious programs. And
Yes.
so
There's to the
so
agnostic and the religious, whoever you want, and your higher power can be whatever you want.
correct. But Celebrate Recovery is specifically Christian.
Yes,
Christian.
it's
So that's
specifically
yeah. So that's the difference. And so I just wanted to
the
clarify that.
ACA is the non-religious version kind of Celebrate Recovery. From what I've heard, that's in the States. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
Uh, I, I think I have. It's just been a while,
It's yeah,
actually.
ACA, it's just like, kind of like doing a deep dive after you're gone to AA for a few years, you kind of graduate a little bit and you start doing a deep dive. So that's kind of what it's about. It's kind of doing a deep dive
Okay.
after you've gotten strong enough to, or after you've gone through the 12 steps. It's like then you go to ACA and you do a deep dive, and it's the same thing where it's not religious and it is just for, like, it's not just for the agnostic, but you can be agnostic, you can be religious, you can be whatever the hell you want to be, opposed to, or CR, it is Christian based.
Gotcha.
But that's
Okay.
the ACA is the one that is not, and you can do the same thing there, women, men, and deep dive.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I just wanted to clarify that because, you know, recovery is not like linear. It's you can
No.
take your own path to recovery. It's not, you don't have to do AA. You don't have to do NA. You don't have to do Celebrate Recovery. You don't have. So just know there are options out there for you. You
I
know.
will even tell you with the methadone clinic, I actually, before my life got out of control, I was maintaining by seeing my addictions doctor slash counselor. And you walk in a methadone clinic, you're not expecting that kind of treatment, and they treat you very nice. You're expecting to see people that are like falling off the table, but no, everybody looks just like you. It's just people that have had just you like there might be a few that do not like what the doctor says and might get a little rowdy about it or don't are impatient, but for the most part it's clean, they're nice there, they'll give you a free health assessment and work towards your mental health, which you
Mm.
would never think at a methadone clinic they would do. You do not have to be addicted to opiates, and you can see a doctor, you can see counselors, they have social workers, and they also have resource programs up all over the walls. It is not somewhere to have the stigma there. Once you go through the doors, you will see what I mean. That's how I found true sobriety and have maintained it for 5 years. I just started going to meetings because my life kind of got out of control and I didn't want to slip. But I
Yeah,
would say methadone clinics are, that's something else I wanted to mention, are not as scary or as they don't carry the stigma you think, and you don't have to be an opiate addict. Any kind of addict you can go for, and they'll help you.
yeah. And now just remember she's in Canada.
Oh
So
yeah, you
we're not
guys in the States would have to pay for that.
she yeah, she's in
Yeah.
Canada, so it may be a little different in the United States. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah,
Just
I totally forgot about that.
I'm not quite sure about that, but just note that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that either, so I will say yes. I'm in Canada and things I assume are a little bit different, but if you've ever watched Dope Sick with Michael Keaton, it's very much like that.
Yeah. So
Even
just
if you
keep
want to compare it in America, I like the TV show Dope Sick, it's very much like that with Michael Keaton going to one at the end and stuff like that.
yeah. So just know that there are places that you can go to get support. Um, you don't have to do this alone. You're not alone. There are plenty of us out here that have gone through it. You know, it's you know you're certainly not alone. So um, please
Yeah.
seek help. And Jasmine, you want to say again what your podcast is and TV show and all that good stuff so that people can find you. And I'm going to put it in the episode as well. So, but go ahead.
So and you can see Holly's episode with me. But yeah, it's called Everyone is Addicted. It is on YouTube or on Rogers Television channel 20. It runs um at 11 p.m. on Monday, 2 p.m. on Tuesday, 1 p.m. on Thursday, and 10 p.m. on Thursday. So it runs all throughout the week. If you want to see old episodes, you can go to Rogers Television. Everyone is Addicted, and you will see the episodes there. They upload them there for me because they don't want to. They said they didn't want to steal my views from my podcast, so they put it up under my profile for my television show. And another thing I'll say just before I go, because it's a safety matter, if you are taking benzodiazepines, do not go off them cold turkey. And if you want to try, go to detox, because you could, same if you are a very, very, very heavy drinker, go to detox, go to the emergency. Don't try to quit cold turkey because it can be deadly. And I just wanted to say that because it's not said enough and people try it and it leads to accidental deaths. So I thought I would mention that. But yeah,
That's a very good point. I did not know that when I was trying to stop drinking. And
I didn't either.
yeah, they told me to keep drinking. And I was like, what are you talking? I thought they were crazy
You gotta
until I realized
wean.
that I could seize if I if I stopped drinking cold turkey. So
I
that,
learned it from benzos, so that's how I know. But
yeah, so
yeah.
that's a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up too. So okay, Jasmine, when I close my podcast, I usually ask my guests 10 questions. So are you ready?
Hmm.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here's the first question. Hang on, I just lost my my spot, but hang on. Okay, first question. What skill would you like to ultimately master and why?
Yeah. I think that maybe my writing skill. I feel like I'm good
Ooh,
at writing, but I could be much better. And that's why I haven't written a memoir because I am good, but I could be better. And I would like to master that skill. That's what I would say. Writing.
oh, that's a good one. I like that. Okay, what has been the highlight of your life thus far and why?
For two highlights, both my children's births.
That's I can identify with that. I like that. Okay, so what risk have you not taken that you would still like to take, and why haven't you?
I'm a risk taker. Um, I have taken every risk I possibly can take, so I can't say that there's one that I would want to take. Maybe a risk that's kind of stupid is going on rides my daughter wants me to go on because I'm a chicken shit and I don't like scary rides.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, do you have any nicknames or pet names?
Yeah, you know what they used to call me in high school? Booty Ho. So my nickname's Booty Ho.
All right, all right, Booty Ho. Next question. Next question.
I love it.
What 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 living what person, living, dead, or character do you most relate to and why?
My dad. He was the only person I could ever talk to, that understood me, that basically he was the only person that ever understood me, and the only because we were so much alike, the only person I could ever talk to that didn't that would just make you feel better. Yeah, all the way around my dad. Even when I was little, we just clicked. So my dad, even though he's dead, I take him everywhere with me, heavy as he is. You're
Very sweet. I like that. Okay, who do you admire and why?
gonna hate me, but I'm gonna say I admire you.
Oh, thank you.
But I
Thank
do know you and I know your story, so anybody that's watching, watch her story from my channel and you'll understand why I admire her so much.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. No, I'm gonna
True, watch your episode and you
you're
know
gonna
your
make me
life.
you're gonna make me cry.
Well, think about it. You've been,
Well,
well, I'm not gonna give your life away, but yeah, think about it.
oh my gosh. Okay, so what has been your biggest, like, this is a trick question actually. What has been your biggest mistake or regret and why? And I say that because usually mistakes aren't really mistakes, they're learning opportunities. So that's why I say it's a trick question. But
I
what
would say 100% not pushing to get my mental health dealt with because I always studied psychology because I knew there was something wrong with me. Instead of self-medicating, I wish that I would have pushed my doctors to listen to me. I wish I would have pushed harder to get the mental health, um, that like the help and support that I needed because I can function now, where before I couldn't make phone calls. I have agoraphobic. Couldn't leave the house, pick my skin, the anxiety of just literally, like I said, I couldn't make phone calls. I couldn't um do anything that would scare me, and a lot of things would scare me just because my mom picked at me for everything my whole life, right? So I just, well, I could. I wish I would have got my anxiety under control 20 years ago. But I didn't press it because I didn't understand it and they didn't talk about it enough. So
Yeah.
once COVID hit and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm depressed." I was like, "Finally, they're gonna listen to me." And that's when they finally gave me mental health help. And I mean, it took a couple years to get medications right, and you know what I mean. But once you are in the spot that you need to be, if you do have mental health problems, life is so much more beautiful, even in the hard times, than it was before, because your brain is able to operate in the way it should be operating, opposed to causing you all the issues that it does otherwise.
Right.
I would say that.
And one something that's really important too is you can't really be uh, properly diagnosed
While you're
until
using.
exactly. You need to really stop drinking and using until you to be properly diagnosed because that stuff doesn't really help,
No.
you know.
No,
So
and I know people who went through all kinds of crazy diagnoses because they were on drugs, right? But once they got sober and got a proper diagnosis, it was completely opposite. So it's true
exactly.
because you don't understand yourself. You're not clear enough to understand yourself. You're very full of yourself with your ego. So you're also very, any question they ask you, defensive, opposed to being open to having them figure out what's wrong with you. Once you want
Yeah,
to have that figured out, you can get help. You just have to ask and bug until you get help.
right. So okay, uh so that one is advocating for yourself pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your favorite curse word?
Hopefully the F word.
Which what would be that? What word is
I did. Well, I'm like, fuck this, fuck that all the time. So,
okay?
my
Yeah, I
kids
can
know
morph.
it. My family are always like, stop curling. I'm like, I can't help it. And my husband and I, things have been obviously quite contentious lately, right? So it's just, we're in the driveway. Fuck you. No, fuck you. So, yeah, use
Dude,
it a lot.
I can morph that word into anything. I
Yeah.
love that.
Any conversation and it gets worked into. Could be even a job interview, I would say. Oops.
Okay, I this is my personal favorite. This is my personal question, but it has nothing to do with like. Anyway, I'll just ask it. What is your ethnicity or heritage? Like, do you know if you're
Yeah,
like
I did
Scott?
it 23. I did it 23 and me.
Okay,
I know my family, like my grandmother on my dad's side was a war bride from England. My mom's mom was from Ireland, but I am mostly Irish and then English and German, but mostly I like 80% Irish, and then I don't know the exact percentages for the German and the English, but mostly Irish, yeah.
that's awesome. I'm also English, German, and Irish. That's cool.
Probably why we're so crazy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for real. Okay, so last question. What would you hope that your higher power or God or the universe would say to you when you uh, pass or transition or die?
I wish they'd give me my dad back. So
Okay.
basically, I would wish to
Or you
see or
see
get
him,
my dad back.
or I think you probably will. I think hopefully he'll meet you. Hopefully he'll meet
We'll
you.
see. Hopefully.
I bet you
He
will.
wasn't very religious himself, so who knows?
Never know. Might surprise you. Might surprise you.
Well, he does weird things in the house, so we know he's around. Like toys will go off or things will go missing, and he like to be a little bit of a trickster kind of person, so he does things like that. So no, he's around, but I don't know. That could just be me hoping. I don't know, right? We really don't know as much. Like we can say and we can speculate, but nobody ever has died fully and come back, so nobody really knows. It's not like you died for 6 months and you came back and you could tell us, right?
Yeah, well, I tend to believe in that stuff. So I think if you pay attention, they do give us signs. So that's
Yeah,
my,
I was in that world and I've definitely been able to talk to the deceased and stuff. I just think it brought me some negative energy, so I decided through my situation to instead go back to school and not play with fire.
well, that's probably a smart thing. So,
Yeah.
well, Jasmine, thank you so much for sharing your story and returning the favor and giving us your genuine, you know, struggles and just keeping it real with us because, as you know, uh, sobriety and recovery is not easy sometimes, but it is once you meet the challenge, it is rewarding.
Yeah, 100%.
So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me on.
And I do wish you the best. And I know it will turn out well
I
for
know it's just like I said, it's life, and life is just not always on your side. And you could be envious of like people like the Kardashians and be like, oh, how come life didn't put me in that? Or just keep pushing and doing the things you love doing and waiting, because if you don't have control, that's all you can do.
that's right. Then life gets lifey.
Mm-hmm,
And
it does.
so anyway, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us. And please stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you soon. Bye.